my background and my co-founder's background has been in education for the last 15 years. We started out as earlier as consultants to the education sector with a premium strategy house. And then in 2017, decided to start Link Education focused on the problems and the pain points in online learning, which was around student experience and this notion that online learning is all about self-learning. So that's where we started Link, and we worked initially. It's a Link was focused mostly on the Australian university sector, where we partnered with universities to help deliver fully online degree programs. Now, we slowly and steadily built our credibility in that space, but we also learned a lot about how the online modality can be used to tackle other challenges. And one of the key challenges that a lot of the overseas universities, our partners, used to talk to us about was the that many students who would come from various parts of the world to Australia or to the UK, even in the US, they would struggle immensely in the first few sort of terms or first year of their education because of the not just because of the fact that they are in a new living environment, but because the academic environment was completely different from what the students are used to, let's say in an India or a Vietnam or a Bangladesh or whatever. It's just it's like night and day. It's very different. The mindset is different. The ask of the student is very different. And then there was another challenge, which was that a lot of the students were being sort of sent by education consultants or agents as a pathway to immigration, not as a pathway to education. And that meant that a lot of the students that they got, they were also not very confident on whether they wanted to continue their education or they just wanted to come to overseas countries just to figure out maybe an alternative way of living and not really educate themselves and then go into a professional career. So we said that, hey, look, how can we solve that problem for the universities? But there's a third problem, and which is actually a problem for the students, which we could also think we were thinking at the same time, and that is actually a very big problem. Going overseas is a very big expense for a lot of families. Now, of course, if you are amongst the fortunate ones, you may be easily able to shell out 70, 80 lakh rupees or whatever it might take for a full tuition fee based education, and especially at undergraduate level. At undergraduate level, scholarships are not easily available, and 100% scholarships are non-existent. In fact, very few, very smart, brilliant students would get them, but 99.99% of the students have to pay out of their own pocket. There came the second area which we thought we could figure out a solution to through our program was, can we ease the economic burden of the students of an overseas degree, of an overseas education? So can we help them save some money and therefore make it more accessible? And that is the birth of the WorldGrad. So what we did was we went to the university, said, hey, look, why don't we take the same online program delivery, which we specialize in, and create a program which is considered as a part of your first year degree program. So the student can do a part of their first year degree with us online, and when they complete it, they can go on campus. And in doing so, we address both the university's concerns and the students' concerns. The student concern, let's talk about that first. Our online programs are configured and very economically. So the student can save up to 65% of their first year's tuition fees if they did the online program with us. But moreover, they can also save on living expenses, because now you're in the comfort of your home. If you're 17 years old or 18 years old coming out of school, you can still stay at home for a little bit longer. You don't have to spend a lot of money going overseas living expenses. So you save a lot of money. So students save 15, 20 lakh rupees right off the bat through the program. The university's problem is solved because during the program, which is still taught by overseas educators with overseas curriculum, the students are learning the academic requirements and are bridging that academic gap that exists between the Indian or the international education systems versus the Western education systems. So that's where both of these issues were tackled, and that's the genesis of WorldGrad. So we actually came up with this concept even before COVID had hit. This was in December of 2019, and we started floating this concept with a lot of universities. Obviously, during COVID, the need for this kind of a path became even more, because universities were like, look, in any case, I can't get students to come to my campuses. Remote learning is not really beneficial because it's very largely Zoom based, and you don't have content, don't have a structure around it. So that's where our adoption picked up, and very quickly we actually have 14 destination partners in the top, which are all top 500 global universities, and we offer more than 100 undergraduate and postgraduate qualifications for students across these 14 partners. So the last 1.5 years, the adoption of this concept from the university standpoint has been strong. And now for the last few months, we have been taking this to the students and the parents and showcasing the benefits of this concept. So that's just a genesis of the WorldGrad and Link Education, and how we moved from fully online program delivery into actual programs enabling overseas education. So, see, our students, the ones that we target, still have the ambition of going overseas, because ultimately they want that overseas experience, right? They want to be in London, they want to be in New York or Melbourne or Sydney or what have you, or Dubai, wherever. So for them, for this category of students, which we are targeting or we are focusing on right at this point in time, for this segment of students, taking the full degree online will not help, because they will then miss out on the real benefits. The other part of it is a family that is aspiring to go overseas also wants to, obviously that student would want to live on in that country, join the workforce, get overseas experience, maybe for 4 or 5 years, maybe for longer, up to them, obviously. And doing a part of your education physically in an overseas country actually helps a lot from later on getting work visas and residency statuses, etc. So our concept here is to find a good balance between how much the student can do online and how much the student can do on campus. We also don't want to overburden them with online education, because while we definitely believe that learning online is a skill that that every student needs to develop, every individual needs to develop, in fact, from here onwards for the future. But then at the same time, the benefits of being on campus cannot be replaced by online learning. So the social element of it, the physical element of it, the environmental element of it, that cannot be replaced. And therefore, especially when students are at a very young age, 17, 18 years old, if you start putting them into online programs for 2, 3 years, they may end up missing out on those very formative years, forming the friend circle. I'm sure when some of your best friends would be from the friends that you have made in college, right? Those are just harder to do in an online setting. It's just more difficult, not impossible, just more difficult. And we don't want the students to be robbed of that experience. So therefore, what we feel is that if you are doing a 3-year degree, right, you should do maybe somewhere around 6 months to maybe 8 months online, and then you can go overseas. If you're doing a 4-year degree, then you can do up to about a year or so online. And as you become more mature, maybe for older students, that could be a different mix or a different balance. But for a very young student, 17, 18-year-old, we feel that a 25 to 30% exposure online and 65 to 70% on campus is a good balance to maintain, making it both economical but also more effective. Let me first talk about the university. So we have partners who are in Australia. We have a university partner based out of Dubai, which is an Australian university which has a campus in Dubai. We have partners in the UK, and now most recently we now have 4 partners in the United States as well. And we're just on the verge of launching our US Year 1 program. So they are still not out. Most of the programs right now are for US, UK, and Australia. It's very important. So the transition is twofold. One is an academic transition, and then the second is your physical sort of. I would put the transition in 3 steps. There's academic, which is purely about what you're learning, how you're learning, and what your expectation is. Second is actually a skills transition. So what are the tools, skill sets, etc., that you are developing, which includes, in today's world, most of the universities are heavily dependent on e-resources. Libraries are all electronic nowadays. Digital environment is used for everything. And then the third is the physical aspect of it, right? So, okay, being on campus, being in a different environment, different country. Now, we actually help with the first two very well. All of the academic side of it, the concepts, the academic expectations, the academic way of learning is taken care by our program, because these are all developed in conjunction with our foreign partners. So the program, curriculum, etc., is aligned. Assessment, way the assessments are done are all aligned. All our lectures are led by overseas educators, but then students are also given unlimited one-to-one support with India-based highly qualified faculty members who are qualified at the overseas levels and vetted at the overseas level. So the caliber is very good. The second side is the learning skill set side. So we actually embed our students into our partner universities' digital environment. So the student has all the resources, everything accessible, and they actually start feeling as if they're part of the university, because they can connect with students who are on campus. So if you wanted, you could create buddies who are on campus and you are online, or they, in today's world, they may not even be on campus. They could be anywhere in the world, right? You don't know. But you are embedded in all the support services of the university, which is essentially how you will function later on when you go on campus. So you are completely familiar how to do my enrollments, how to do my finance, what is the student system looks like, the student administration system that looks like. You are embedded into the e-resources, libraries, etc. So that's the second part of it. And then the third part of it, all we can do at this stage is actually prepare students to be more comfortable when they go overseas. And that is a journey that the student has to take or that jump has to be taken at some point in time, whether they do it right after school or 8 months after school. That's just a time period matter. So it's not that we are taking that away from the student. It is just we are maybe pushing that event in time for a bit further out. But what we do is, while the students are studying with us, we keep getting university campus representatives, or could be even students, to engage with our students as well. So they can conduct sessions, tell them about student accommodation, student house, food, what kind of options they have. So just general education and preparing them that, okay, this is what you want to do. And of course, then there are other components of it, such as visa, etc., which we would also help with this. So it just in that transition. So definitely, it's something that I would feel that a student who goes through our program is actually better prepared to be successful on campus than just coming out of school on day one and going on day two, because they would have no orientation in between. But we help them orient on all the various academic and or non-academic elements. So I think the support service starts for us is when the first time we start interacting with the family or the student. To give you a sense, there are roughly about 500,000 students from India who probably sort of get qualified for an overseas university. What do we mean by that is that normally overseas universities would require students to take some sort of an English language test, because India is not considered as a native English language speaking country. So 500,000 students or so, there about 400,000 to 500,000 students would every year take that test. But another 1.5 to 2 million actually think about going overseas. And very early on in their discovery process, they realize that maybe it is either too expensive, too far away, too difficult for them to make that journey. So they drop out. When we speak with parents, we get parents or students who are anywhere in this entire funnel. They could be at the very early stage, or they could be at somewhere more advanced stage where they've actually made an effort to give an exam to prepare for going overseas. Now, our services start from what we call as the counseling aspect of it, because we have to understand the student's ambition. What is it they want to do? Why do they want to go overseas? So what is the outcome that they're looking for? And what are the means, how eligible they are, both from an academic as well as from a financial standpoint. One of the biggest element about these non-academic services is financial counseling, because a lot of parents and families have the aspiration, but they're not very sure about whether A, they can afford it, B,
how much does it cost, what are the realistic things, but also see how do you actually make this dream come true. Because it doesn't mean that if you are a family whose household income is X, you just cannot go, or you need to have 50-60 lakh rupees in your bank account, and that's the only way to go overseas today. Between of course scholarships, between loan facilities, and smart programs like ours, which help you reduce cost. Actually, you do not need to have a big chunk of change in your bank account in order to realize your overseas education dream. So we invest a lot of our time in upfront with the families in informing and educating them about their options. And when, of course, we feel that actually the overseas education is perhaps beyond their means, we would tell them. So we don't try and tell them, oh, no, 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 I will get, something will happen, we will get you a scholarship, will you just apply? We don't do those kind of things. Because most importantly for us, we are not an education agent or a counselor from that perspective, from the more traditional perspective. We are an online program partner to universities. The student is being enrolled in our program, and then they are going to go to the overseas campus. They are our responsibility, and we are responsible for their success in the online component, but also in a successful transition in the overseas component. So what we don't do is, we are not making money just by getting them a visa or sending them overseas. That's not what our objective is. Our incentives are aligned to the success of the student, because if the student is not successful in their entire journey, nobody is going to enroll through the online route. So we have to first make sure that the families are adequately prepared for the entire journey, not just looking at the short term, looking at the visa side. Rajneesh, I think this was always our first point of conversation with any potential partner. So what we get the partners to do is that they have to commit to the student even before the student starts with the WorldGrad. So this way, before the student even starts with us, the student holds an offer from that university for completion. Now, because it's a confirmed offer, if the university reneges on that, it is actually illegal based on their own government. But most of our partners are, by the way, public universities. So we don't necessarily work with private, or if they are private, like in the US, but they are non-profit universities, so as good as public universities. If they have confirmed to the student, and I'll give you an example. Just this is from 2 days ago. One of our university partners in Australia, they had issued an offer letter with a student where they had mistakenly put in a 10% scholarship for the student, because they thought the student was going to start on campus later this year in October. However, because we know that board results, etc., are all delayed, the student cannot start in October, and we had asked them for a start in February. But the university, by mistake, still gave the student a 10% scholarship, which is great for the student. When we made them aware of this, the university was very clear. Look, it is our mistake, but we have sent them the offer. This is the offer. This is what the student gets. And even though it is not correct, I'm not going to change it, because I have made my commitment to the student. So they have to always fulfill their commitment, irrespective of what their relationship with WorldGrad be or whatever it is. So this is just an example, but universities cannot roll back on the offers. And what we do for each and every one of our students is, we will get them that offer beforehand. Getting the offer beforehand also gives us confidence that the student knows where they are going, what they want to do. Our programs are actually quite flexible. We have 2-3 different kinds of programs. As I was telling you earlier, we have a US program which we will launch, which are doing Gen Ed credits, the first year courses, which in the US are common. So it could be marketing, finance, accounting, English, etc. These kind of programs, which are generally accepted across multiple universities, and you get a US college credit transcript for that from our university partners. So it is actually very flexible. For whatever reason, even if the student, in fact, the power is in the hands of the student. The student could have the offer letter from my university partner X, but then decide after 1 year that I'm going to take that and I'm going to go to a university Y, which is not in my partnership. Student can always make that choice. The university, on the other hand, or WorldGrad, can actually not make that choice, that we cannot tell the student, no, now this partnership no longer exists, so you can't go. We cannot do that, but the student always has a choice to go somewhere else. And same way for Australia or for UK is the same thing. our programs where we have got multiple outcome programs. That means you do one program, but you can actually get multiple outcomes through it. So your bets are always hedged. Risk is always hedged. And in fact, the other advantage is that in case for some of our programs that we run, in case the student decides that I don't want to go overseas anymore, I am what my life situation has changed, circumstances has changed, etc. They can be accepted into good Indian universities on the back of and without losing any time. So whatever they have studies they have done will get transferred to Indian universities. We have partnerships with a couple of Indian providers which are fairly big and who would accept the student then on the basis of the courses that they have completed with us. As far as our students are concerned, we of course try and reach out to the students directly through direct channels and generating inquiries. And now we are also now reaching out via school networks. So starting, in fact, next month in August, in the first week of August, we are starting a school outreach campaign to start educating the school administrators, school counselors about this option that they can also share with their students who are considering for next year. This year, obviously, we are focused more on the students who have already, because most of them have completed school, we are focusing more directly on them. As far as the admissions criteria are concerned, we align with the university's admission requirements, but we make it a little easier for the student, again based on what the university has mandated. Maybe they could reduce the English language requirement slightly by half a point or something like that, because the university see that if the student is doing a university grade program with us online and is successful, that itself is a indicator of their caliber. So they don't really necessarily need to depend on very high scores from these standardized English tests, which also tend to be quite expensive. Some of our partners have actually agreed to conduct their own tests, so that the economic load or the cost is not as much. Typically, these overseas tests cost you 15,000-20,000 rupees for if you take it once. That's a lot of money, and then students will spend another 15,000-20,000 preparing for it, right? So it starts adding up. With us, with most of our university partners, we can actually find a way to get admitted into our program on the back of internal English tests which are accepted. And then later on, if the student decides they want a standardized test because it improves their visa candidature, etc., they feel free. They can obviously do that. And from an academic standpoint as well, all the academic requirements are preset with the university. But obviously, they don't make it very difficult for students, because they know that the student is going to prove themselves in an academic program, which is a university grade academic program. The streams, as you asked me, most students are interested in the evergreen fields of business and technology. But we do, of course, do business, finance, technology. Within technology, we have pathways for students to get to cybersecurity, mobile computing, big data. All of those kind of specializations are available at the undergraduate level for our students. But then we are also focused on other fields like sports management, event management, hospitality, tourism. So these are also available for our students. So the portfolio is fairly wide, but I think most students tend to want to do a bachelor's in business or something in technology, because it gives them more options, I believe, for a later stage. So I think for the next academic cycle or the class of 2022, essentially, what we are doing is that we are taking a three-pronged approach. We are, of course, the first one is to participate in overseas education fairs, virtual university fairs, etc., which are mostly virtual in nature nowadays. So you would see us participating in some of the big fairs that get conducted over the course of the year. That's usually good because a lot of students and parents find those to be a great way of collecting information. So again, that's important. The second route, as I was saying earlier, is that we are reaching out directly to school counselors and admissions counselors or career counselors through and spread the awareness about this option, these kinds of options. So that is an initiative that we are running. We think it is a lot more effective because this way the student gets to understand their options from somebody that is, that they've known or they trust. And the third is that ourselves, we run, are launching a number of information sessions and interaction sessions, which could be in group or on one-to-one basis, consultation, counseling sessions, to provide more information to students about these options, how to think about it, how to think about the online component of it. Of course, to now people have a lot of negative connotation around online learning because of remote learning, and so we have to actually showcase to them how different the online learning environment with us is. And mostly, I think today in India, if you look at online education, it is all cheap, right? It's quite low priced, and that means it's largely just self consumption of content. And while companies may say that you have support, this and that, you don't have educators interacting with the students like the way you would expect them to in school. Our programs are not cheap by the Indian standard. They're still quite pricey. If you had to compare it with what an online program in India costs today, you could do some a full year's education in 1.5 lakh rupees. Our one-term education itself is around 3.5 lakh rupees. So it is not cheap, but it is definitely more economical if you were on campus, because that would have costed you, one term would have costed you 8 or 10 lakh rupees. So it's definitely more economical than that. So and that's the another part of it, is that talking about our online programs, giving students a feel of what online learning is about, educating why it is beneficial to them. So these are the activities that we are investing in going forward. And it's not just with the schools or the students. A lot of this has to do with the parents, because parents are the decision makers. It is their ultimately, they are responsible for the success of their children and making them comfortable. So we focus heavily on the parents as well in all our conversations. So while students today are very smart and do a lot of research, ultimately, without engaging the parent, it is very difficult to do a good job of it. And there have been many cases where students are very excited of going overseas, but the parents just put their foot down and say, no, no way, nothing, no, you have to study here, or because, whatever. And then there are cases where the parent has decided, no, you have to go overseas. And that is what I think is the best route for you. So ultimately, that outreach is also very important in addition to this going to through school networks or going just to students. Absolutely. I think by end of this year, we will have actually close to about 20 partnerships, including some of these offbeat geographies, such as Singapore, which is a great, very good quality education available over here. So we would definitely like to put that on our map for students, increase our presence in mainland Europe. So we are in conversations with European institutions for programs that take them over there. Canada is something which is missing in our portfolio, which we would like to add. And then the US is just at the, I would say, the tip of its iceberg, because US has got lots of quality institutions. We are only familiar with the best names over here in India, the top ranking names. But there is a whole, segment of good quality US institutions, which are, specialized or in certain disciplines, or in very good in certain regions, and are also, I think, can be form good economical options for students who are looking for an American education and maybe a pathway into a master's degree or a MS sort of a PhD sort of a path as well. So we think that by end of the year we will be close to about 20 partnerships, and over the next 18 months we will definitely be probably clocking closer to about 40 to 50 partnerships overall. We are not what we don't want to do is we don't care about just adding universities for the heck of it, because it becomes very difficult for us to guide the student then on what is it and why they should be going there. What we believe in is creating good portfolio options, which means we should have something for everyone. you want to go into technology, but you want a more cost effective way, you want to be on the east coast of the US or the west coast. I think that's the kind of portfolio we are creating. You want to be in, for example, in the UK, you could choose to be in a London or a London sort of greater London university, or you could be outside. And these choices are very important because they heavily influence the cost, but also the employment opportunities or part-time work opportunities for students. So having that thinking is what we are saying. So we say, okay, once we create a portfolio which we are comfortable to give all options, we will be happy, and we do not need hundreds of universities. And as I said earlier, we are an online program partner for universities and for students. So we are like an education provider. We are not an education agency or a commission based company where our job is just to put students in universities. So as many universities I can put them into, the better it is. That's not our field of work. That is for others to do. We are more into online, the programs, and creating a right program portfolio is our priority.